I'm going to do some things for the shoulders and the arms today, and I'm going to use a strap. So if you have a strap, that's great, but you can make almost anything else work for this purpose. It could be a towel, it could be a scarf, it could be a t-shirt. So if you want to grab something that would do as a strap facsimile, that it would be great. And if you can't come up with anything, you can probably make it work out too. And now it is time to begin. So it's good to see all of you here this morning. Welcome to Yoga Over 50 from Blue Point Yoga Center in Durham, North Carolina. My name is Lynn, and I'm glad to be here today too. So let's start seated for a change. So you can sit in a chair if you want, or you can sit on the floor. Regardless, however you are sitting, choose a position that will let you sit easily and comfortably in an upright position. So if it's a chair, you'll want it to be a chair that lets your pelvis just roll a little bit forward so that your knees can be at hip level or a little below hip level. If you're seated on the floor, elevate your bum to where you can feel relaxed at the front of the hips. Maybe your knees don't come down to hip level or below hip level. And if they don't, you might want to put a little support under them, some books or rolled up towels or small pillows to provide a place for them to rest. So you'll feel some weight into the fronts of your sits bones and into whatever parts of your legs or feet are touching the floor. If you're on a chair, let some of your weight be into the chair seat and some of your weight be into your feet on the floor. I'm just going to assume you're sitting on the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, just adapt what you're doing. Let your shoulders shrug up towards your ears and then just let them drop down, not forcing them down, just letting them drop down and then shrug them up again and let them drop down and back toward the back of your body. And turn the palms up and away from your torso for a moment and just feel the broadening across the top of the chest that creates. And keep that broadening as you lay your hands back down. You could lay them with the palms up, or you could lay them with the palms down, or you could nest the hands in your lap. Whatever lets your shoulders be relaxed, away from the front of the body, away from the ears, and lets your elbows hang close to your body side to side. And while you're doing that, think of all the things that you do all day long that keep your arms out ahead of you and your elbows out ahead of you. And take advantage of the opportunity to bring the elbows back and let the shoulders settle back. So we like to say, sit with the behind you, meaning that your tailbone is sticking just a little bit out to the back, not an excessive arch at the small of the back, but a little bit of inward curve at the waist part of the spine. And elevating the hips a little bit can help with that. Let your elbows be back in line with the sides of your body and close to the sides as viewed from front to back. Let the back of your neck be long. So for many people, that means the head is centered over the shoulders. For some people, the head might be a little bit forward, but better the head a little forward than a crimp in the back of the neck leading out with the chin to get the head back in line with the spine. So just put your fingers behind the back of your neck and tip your head up and down a little bit and feel that as you tip up, you kind of crimp the fingers as the neck flexes and extends. And as you come forward and let the chin drop toward the chest, you'll feel some ligaments stand out on the back of the spine. And in the middle there's a place where there's just a little softness, a little soft inward curve, and that would be a neutral position for your head. Let your eyes close or your gaze be soft, not focusing on anything in particular. Draw your attention inward, being most attentive to the sensations that are coming in from your body and your mind, and the connection between the two. Letting go of things that may be calling to you from beyond the yoga mat and from the rest of your day. There will be time for those later. Just going to turn back to the front. I think that'll make more sense. Bring the palms together near the breastbone. And then press the palms together as you raise your hands in front of you. And then let your forearms start to come together as well. Press your arms up in front of your face. After a bit, your forearms will need to come apart. And after another bit, your hands will need to come apart so that you can sweep your arms out to the side and then bring them back together, the palms coming together, starting up in the front of your body, and then the forearms coming together, pressing them up overhead. And use an inhale as your arms are rising around the top, and use an exhale as they're coming around the bottom. Go once more up through the center, and then draw the hands back down in front of you. Keep the forearms together as long as they can. Then the elbows will need to come apart. Keep the hands together, including the heels of the hands, until they also need to come apart at the bottom. And then turn the palms and sweep the arms up overhead and bring the hands together overhead and start drawing them down in front of your body, letting the forearms come together as soon as they can, pressing them down in front of you, keeping them together until they must come apart, and then continuing to press through the heels of the hands until they must come apart, and then the fingers come apart, and sweeping back overhead, bringing the hands together and the hands back down to the heart. And then press the hands together, including the heels of the hands, and let your elbows be out to the side of your body. Now check your shoulders a moment, shrug them up and down. Just make sure that by pressing your hands together in front of your breastbone, you haven't also hunched your shoulders forward. And then continuing to press the palms together, turn the fingers to point away from you and slide the hands out to the front and then draw them back in toward you. You can inhale them away and exhale them toward you, or the other way around. I don't really think it makes any difference. Just slide them in and out, keeping the palms pressing together, keeping the fingers pressing together. And then with the hands close to the body, turn your fingers so that they point toward you, keeping the palms together as much as you can. And then we'll let the hands press away, probably not very far away, and then relax, let them come back in. The fingers might touch your chest, and then press them away again, and let the fingers come back in to touch the chest, and then let the fingers just interlace lightly, and take an easy roll of the hands around the wrists with the fingers very lightly laced. Lightly laced, kind of a nice phrase. Go back around the other way, and then move the fingers over by one, so the less accustomed spot, and then roll the hands around the wrists again. It feels different. Roll them around one way and roll them back around the other way, trying to make that a smooth motion, reaching every part of the range of motion in your wrists. Let the hands rest a moment again, and we'll take some circles of the shoulders. So do let your palms rest. It takes a little of the weight of your arms and makes your shoulders a little freer to move around in a big circle. We'll go a few times one way and a few times back the other way. I hope you can't hear all the crunching that I feel in my shoulders. And then let the shoulders relax. And now bring your right hand out in front of you. I've given up on the mirroring because my camera screen and my computer screen are doing two different things, and it just confuses my brain to try to mirror under these circumstances. So I hope you can figure this out okay. So put your right hand out in front of you. Use your left wrist to grasp just below the bony prominence at the wrist, and give a little traction downward. Just stretch the skin downward, and then let your hand circle around the wrist. So that grasping and stretching downward just makes a little bit of more space in the wrist joint, Go around one way a few times and around the other way a few times. And then we'll do that on the left side. So grasping the left wrist just below the protrusion here with your right hand and just drawing down, just creating a little traction down, and then let the hand rotate around the wrist, a few times going around one way and a few times going around the other way. And then take the hands and spread the fingers out very wide as if you were trying to draw the fingers back behind the plane of your palm, and then let them relax. And then spread them way out, stretch them toward your body. So making a big kind of starfish shape out of the hands, and then let them relax again, and just let the fingers curl and give them a little loose shake here. Okay. Now let's do a little for the legs. So let's bring the legs out to the front, sitting in staff pose. You might like the same thing that you're propped on, or you might like a little different height. And there I've got a D that's cranky when I first straighten it out after sitting cross-legged. I gotta give that a little help. So I'll turn to the side. So once again, we want to sit with a tall spine with a little inward curve at the waist part of the spine. So if that doesn't happen on its own, you could try a little bend to the knees to roll the pelvis forward a little bit, create a little ease on the back of the hips that will allow the pelvis to roll forward and have the neutral curves of the spine. If you give a little traction with your heels, you'll achieve that pelvic rolling result. So let's sit tall here and draw the toes back toward the shins. A bit more stretch out of the back of the legs, toes pointing straight up toward the ceiling. And then we could point away either with the toes or with the balls of the feet. So if your instep tends to cramp, pointing through the balls of the feet as if you had Barbie shoes on will help with that. So we'll do a little pointing and flexing with both of the feet moving synchronously. And then let's do one at a time, which is surprisingly different from having them go both at the same time. And then come back to a neutral position where your legs are lined up with your hip joints and your toes are pointed straight up toward the ceiling. And then let's let the toes roll out. So you're externally rotating at the thighs, letting your toes roll away from each other, and just do a little pointing and flexing there. And notice how different that feels, not only around the back of your heels and the bottom of your legs, but even on up into the hips. And let that go and bring the toes back up to the center. Maybe move the feet a little further apart to make room to turn the toes in toward each other, and do that same thing, a little pointing and flexing here. Once again, noticing how different that feels around the back of the hips. Okay. And then we'll bring the legs back to a neutral position, and let's slide the left heel in toward the body. Use the core muscles to hold yourself up against your thigh here. And then let that knee fall out to the side. You can let the left foot just rest against the right leg. Let the right leg be active here. And we'll inhale the arms up overhead. Take a little twist toward your straight leg. First of all, just let the hands be passive, following along. Draw the right shoulder back a little bit. Sorry to be turning away from you. And inhale the arms back overhead. And turn now the other direction to the left. Let the left shoulder draw back a little bit. Keep your spine sitting up straight here. So just try to detect if you might be hunching forward, and keep a tall spine. And inhale the arms back overhead and come to the center, and bring the knee back up in front of you and press that heel away from you. Stretch both heels out away from you in staff pose. And then on an exhale, let your right foot slide in toward your body, again sitting up, using the core muscles to sit yourself up close against the thigh. And then let that knee fall out to the side, so the knee comes down toward the floor. You can put something under it if it doesn't want to come down there all by itself. And we'll inhale the arms up overhead, and this time turn to the left first toward the straight leg, letting one arm just fall passively in front and one behind. Drawing the left shoulder a little further back. You can turn your head to look toward that shoulder as well. Take a breath or so here, and then inhale the arms back overhead. Turn through the center, very tall in the center, and then turn to the right, so turning toward the bent knee. Drawing the right shoulder back, turning the head a little more perhaps. Tall spine here. Breathe freely, even though your ribs are under some tension here. And back to the center. And let the hands come back down and draw the knee back up, the face toward the ceiling, and press that right foot away from you. And take a couple more pointing and flexings of the feet here. And now let's bring the legs out to a wide-legged forward fold. So just fold presently, but not right now. First, just bring the legs out into a wide V, just comfortably wide. And once again, we want to sit up as if you're kind of sitting between the legs. So the pelvis is rolled forward a little between the legs. If that doesn't happen easily, again, a little bit of ease in the knees, coming away from the floor can help to roll the pelvis and allow your spine to sit upright. Turn the toes to face up toward the ceiling. So they might want to roll out to the side. So just bring them around so they're facing straight up toward the ceiling. And we'll let the left arm lie along the inside of the left leg and turn to square the torso toward the extended right leg. And sitting tall, raise the right arm, stretching from the right sits bone to the right fingertips, but let the left leg remain active. So it's continuing to press out through its heel. And then we're going to stretch up on the right side of the body and let that create a small back bend, perhaps. So we don't want to like just crump down into the left side of the body, but think of you going up and over maybe a large ball on your way, and keep the right shoulder back in line with the torso and the right arm back in line with the torso. And then inhale back upright again, and let the arm come down and turn to face forward. A little bit of a joggle of the knees to relieve the legs a little. And then we'll lay the right arm to the inside of the right leg and turn the torso to face toward the extended left leg. Press down with the left sits bone, reach up with the left fingers, keep the right leg active, keep reaching with the left fingers so that you create an extra stretch on the left side of the torso that gives you a little bend up and over toward the right leg. And keep breathing. That would be the really important part. Notice what your head's doing. It should stay back in line with the rest of your torso and the rest of your spine. And then inhale back upright and let the arm come down and face back to the center, and then bend at the knees and bring the soles of the feet together into a bound angle position. Your feet could be quite close to your body or they could be further away. And once again, let the torso roll forward here between the legs. If you tent your fingers behind you and just give a little pressure, you can feel your pelvis rolling, and maybe you feel the inside of the thighs stretch a little bit and the knees roll down a little bit toward the floor. It's kind of interesting to feel that connection. Great. Okay, so now let's do a little bit with the strap. And if you are tired of sitting on the floor, you could do this strap thing while standing up, and that would work just fine too. So make yourself comfortable, seated or standing. And then we'll just take whatever you have. I mean, it could be a t-shirt, that'll work too. Just something that you can hang on to give a little bit of outward tension. So you're moving your hands away from each other at the moment with the palms facing up. And then we'll inhale the arms up overhead to come in line with the torso, and exhale them back down towards your knees, just keeping a little bit of tension on whatever it is you're hanging on to. And if you're not hanging on to anything, you can do this kind of isometrically, just keeping a little tension as if you were trying to draw your hands away from each other, but they're not able to move away from each other. And then we'll bring the hands back down. And now switch the hands. So now your back of your hand is facing up. And we're gonna bring the strap up overhead and then let enough of it run through that you can start to bring your arms behind you. Now be judicious about this, please. So some people's shoulders are not going to think this is a good idea at all. And if that's the case, please don't do it. Just give them a little stretch within their safe range of mobility. Yeah? Just move slowly with attention to how things are feeling. And then we'll come back down to the center, and then with a little less wide grasp, bring the arms up overhead, maybe out into a slight V, and then we'll just keep the distance between the hands the same with the strap, taking a stretch on the right side by moving the hands over to the left, then back up to the center, and then taking a stretch on the left side by moving the hands over to the right. Keep the head still in line with the spine. The head and neck are still free to move, and then back overhead, and let your hands come back down. And now we'll do a little cow-faced pose. So the legs part of cow-faced pose has the thighs lined up, stacked on each other, and the thighs facing mostly toward the front. So you'll slide, let's say slide your right leg under your left leg so that your thighs are more or less stacked on top of each other. Now, if they don't want to stack on top of each other like this, just leave the knees a bit apart so that it's more like a cross-legged pose. Also, options for what to do with your lower legs. You can keep your feet kind of in close to your hips, or you can kind of straighten out your lower legs so that your feet are more sticking out to the side. I have this idea, since it's a mystery to me why this is called cow-face pose, that these might be the ears of the cow face sticking out to the side here. Okay. So we've got the thighs stacked up, the knees pointing mostly forward. Notice what your weight is doing, what your sits bones are doing. So we would like to keep sitting equally onto each sits bone with the torso straight up over the hips, equal length on each side of the torso. So if you feel all kind of cockeyed and corkscrewed around, just ease up on the crossing so that you can make yourself steady and symmetrical on your hips. So then we'll take the strap and we'll put it in the right hand and reach the right arm overhead, and then bring that hand down between the shoulder blades, bring the left hand out to the side with the palm facing to the back, and then we're going to bring the back of the left palm against the back behind and reach for the strap. And don't let the reaching for the strap create a hunching of the shoulders. So I'm just going to turn to the side to show that the idea of this is to let the shoulders and the elbows come behind the body. So your arms are making kind of a big curve across the front of the body, from elbow to shoulder, across to the other shoulder, and to the upper shoulder, the higher elbow rather. And just do a little turning and nodding of the head here, just make sure that you haven't created a big tension in the head and the neck. And then we'll gently let go and stretch the arms back out again. You could move the hands behind you and tent the hands on the floor and make a small back bend with the upper part of the spine, letting your eyes look up toward the ceiling slightly, mostly the upper part of the spine. And then sit back up again, and we'll unwind the legs, stretch them out into a comfortably wide V. Sit tall here. Once again, you could bring the fingertips tented behind you and use that to just create a little pressure and roll the hips forward, and then let that relax. Let the toes point up toward the ceiling here, and let that relax again. And now we'll set up for the cow-faced pose the other way. So this time it's the left leg that's going to be underneath and the right leg on top. So the thighs are stacked on top of each other. But again, you take a position that is workable for you in terms of keeping the weight centered into both hips and equal length on both sides of the torso. Trying to remember which thing I did before. Yes, I think I've got it. Okay. And you might notice right away that one side kind of wrapped up and let you sit straight a lot more easily than the other side, which is just another demonstration of what we all know already, which is that everyone has asymmetries of the body. And, you know, we work with them and also try to maybe work toward minimizing them. I mean, everybody's got asymmetries. You're not going to get rid of all of them. But if you ease them toward a more matched pair, it can sometimes make your body work a little more fluently. And then with the strap in the left hand, we'll bring that hand overhead and let it come down behind the back. And you can certainly do this without a strap and just put your hand behind your back too. And on the right hand, the palm turns to the back so that the back of the right palm comes against the back of the body, reaching for the strap or not. And once again, thinking shoulders behind the body, elbows behind the body, head and neck free to turn and nod, creating a kind of an arched shape from elbow to shoulder into the second elbow. And gently let that go. Stretch the arms back out to the sides. Maybe create a small back bend here, tenting the fingers to the floor, taking a little arch to the spine. Just notice what you feel through your hips as you arch your spine and let your pelvis roll a little bit forward in this position. And then we'll let that go and unwind the legs again, stretching them out into a wide V, maybe giving a little bobble of the knees up and down. And then we're going to come to a standing position. So however you want to do that in a safe way for you, please go ahead, come up slowly and sitting around near the floor. So let's come to a standing mountain position first. So finding the bony corners of the hips, a little in and a little down, wave the knees in and out to feel the hip joints, and line up the knees, the ankles, and the long axis of the feet under those points. Moderated for your body, of course. So if a little wider, a little narrower, a little toe in, a little toe out, seems to carry the weight down into the floor through your legs more faithfully, then that's what you should do, because that's the aim, is to have the weight of the upper body transmitted down into the security of the floor without strain on any of the joints. And I'll just turn to the side here. So you could experiment with a little outward traction at the heels. Just notice what you feel across the back of your hips as you just press out a little bit with the heels. You could also experiment with just moving the hips very slightly back toward the heels. See if that creates a little more relaxation in the lower back. Turn your palms forward for a moment and let your shoulders broaden across the collarbone, and then let the arms relax at your sides. And once again, a neutral position of the head and neck. So if you want, you could put your fingers behind your neck again and nod the head up and down and feel for this place where you have just a little softness and a little inward curve at the neck. Great. Okay. So let's inhale the arms overhead and exhale and hinge at the hips, keeping the spine stretching long, the head and neck in line with the spine. We bring the torso over. Feel free to stop whenever you start to feel a bend beginning in the waist part of your spine. Also feel free to bend your knees, which makes it easier to hinge at the hips and let the belly come close to the thighs. And we'll press through the feet. Inhale the arms up overhead. The spine comes up all as one unit, and the hands together, and exhale the hands to the heart. And let's inhale the arms overhead and exhale and fold forward. You can let your hands rest on your thighs for a little place to support some of your body weight if you like. Don't press out on your knees to straighten your knees overly. And now let's inhale and make the L shape with the floor, stretching the rib cage away from the pelvic girdle, the head and neck away from the shoulders, long straight line here. Perfectly okay to have a little bend to the knees so that you can keep the natural curves of the spine, the little inward curve. And then exhale, let yourself slide down a little, bend the knees, inhale the arms up overhead as you straighten, and bring the hands together and exhale the hands to the heart. And now let's inhale and bring the arms out to cactus arms, and exhale and bend at the knees, the hips, and the ankles to sit into chair. Just check that you've got a little bit of your toes visible past your knees here, and think about that same neutral spine that you had while standing up. So if you think you've gotten into a position where your bum is sticking way out to the back and creating a great big curve at the small of the back, see if you can gather up the belly muscles to support your torso for a more neutral spine. And then let's bring the palms together, press through the feet, straighten the knees, inhale the arms overhead, and exhale the arms down to the side. And then again, we'll inhale the arms out to cactus arms, exhale to sit into chair. Take a breath or two here. Then bring the hands together to the heart, press through the feet, straighten the knees, inhale the arms overhead, and exhale the arms down to the side. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of things that are going to use the chair as sort of a starting position. And some of them will involve shifting the weight, well, a couple of them will involve shifting the weight into one leg. So you might want to back yourself up toward a wall or toward a chair so that if your balance seems uncertain, you could just rest the back of your hips very lightly at the wall, or even just stay a little away from the wall, but you've got it there to catch you if you should need that. And you can do, well, no, I'm not going to do that with a chair, because if you miss the chair while you're trying to use it for balance, that's not a pretty sight. So let's not do that. Okay. So let's do a little, the Mr. Peanut Man. So it's kind of a standing figure 4. So we're going to sit, I think it's easier to see if I face forward. Bring the hands to the heart. We're going to bend the knees, the hips, and the ankles to sit into chair. And then shift your weight into your left foot and pick up your right foot. Now you could just cross your feet at the ankle and just touch the toe down, the right toes to the floor. You could pick your right foot up and set it across your left knee. Pick something to look at, probably on the floor some distance ahead of you, so you can keep your head and neck in line with the spine. Keep your spine stretching long. Keep your shoulders facing forward, even though you've got your hips kind of crossed up a bit here. Keep breathing. Woo. A little flexion to the foot helps to keep that raised leg active, which is helpful. If you keep all of your body kind of responsible for its own parts, it makes the job of the supporting leg a bit easier. And when you're ready to come out of that, bring the foot back down, back into the chair pose, press through the feet, straighten the knees, raise the arms overhead, and exhale the arms back down to the side. And take a little bob or a little swish if you want to just relax your legs a bit. And then we'll do that on the other side. So we'll sit into chair. Just check that your knees are going straight out over the toes. So that's what we need for safety for the knees. Shift the weight into your right foot and cross your left foot over. You could cross it just onto the floor, so you've got your toe touching the floor. That would be a perfectly fine place to be. Or you could bring your ankle up across your thigh. Now, of course, the more you sort of squat down in the chair, the lower your center of gravity, and that has some benefits as far as being tippy. On the other hand, it also puts a bit more work onto your supporting leg. So you be the judge of what would be the right place to be. And by putting a little of your weight into the wall through your bum resting on the wall, you can moderate this and maybe make it more accessible, and that might let you bring your foot up onto the thigh and just experience that shape a little bit. And this is by far my wobblier supporting leg, so I can feel everything working like mad here and falling over even. So when this side has had enough, I think that's had enough, back to the chair pose, press through the feet, inhale the arms overhead, and exhale the hands back down to the sides. And then step the feet apart. Have the toes pointing forward. And we'll just inhale the arms overhead here and exhale, and we'll take a forward hinge at the hips with wide legs. So keep the spine long and let your hands run down your legs if you like. Don't press the knees back behind you too hard. Let your weight just shift back and forth a little bit. Feel the difference between having the weight behind your heels versus more over your heels. Give a bend to the knees, bring the hands to the heart, squeeze the thighs together as you stand back up again. And now we're going to turn the toes a little out to the side. So the knees are going to go with the toes. So if your knees are happy to go out to the side a lot, your toes could go out a lot. And likewise, if your knees are not going to want to go out to the side, they're not going to want to rotate at the hips that much, then don't turn your toes out quite so far. Bring the arms out into a big shape, and then bend at the ankles, the knees, the hips, and the elbows to come into goddess pose. You can come low into goddess pose or not so low into goddess pose, whatever is suitable for you. Bring the elbows back in line with the shoulders, the hands in line with the elbows for a very broad chest here. And then we'll press through the feet and inhale the arms up overhead and the knees straight. And then sit down again into goddess pose. And press the weight into your balls of your feet. See if the heels could come up off the floor for a little bit of balancing in goddess pose. And let the heels down, press through the feet, straighten the hands, straighten the arms, reach up into a big, big sort of starfish shape, and bring the hands back down to the heart. Turn your toes in and walk your feet back together. Okay, so now we're going to have a little standing eagle pose. So once again, you might find that you'd like to be backed up either with your bum touching the wall or with your bum just kind of close to the wall so that if you start to feel tippy, you can take advantage of it. The other thing you might possibly do, I don't have a block right near me, is we're going to be crossing one leg over the other, and you might want to have a block over there on the outside of your supporting foot as a place to land your wrapped leg. Okay, so we'll stand in a standing mountain position, and we'll sink down a bit into chair. And then shift the weight. I think I'm going to go with the right leg first this time. Shift the weight into the right leg. Come up onto the toes of the left foot. And we're going to wrap the left leg over the right, squeezing the thighs together, squeezing the calves together. If you're very flexible in this position, you might be able to wrap your toes around behind your calf of your standing leg. You could just leave those toes, the left toes, down on the floor for a little bit of a prop. Turn your torso to keep facing forward. So your hips have gone at a little angle, but the torso stays facing forward. The upper torso, that is. And now we're going to stretch the arms out to the side and cross the arms with the left coming under the right. You could just cross like, woo! Cross like this and stop right there. You could bring the backs of the palms together, or you could wrap further and bring the fronts of the palms together. Keep breathing, keep looking at something that's not moving. Touch the toe of that left foot down if you need a little prop. And if you want a little more to happen here, keeping the spine long, you could hinge at the hips and bring the elbows and the knees closer together and then bring yourself back up again. But no necessity of doing that. And when you think that leg has had a bit of too much to do, not too much to do, enough to do, unwrap the feet, come back to the chair pose, unwrap the arms, stretch the arms to the side, bring the palms together, press through the feet, press through the hands, straighten the legs, reach the arms up overhead, and exhale the arms to the side. And just take a little loose bob here to relax anything that might have gotten under some tension in the course of events. And then we'll come back to the standing mountain position and do that on the other side by first bringing the palms together and sitting into chair. And we're going to wrap the other way this time. So the supporting leg is going to be the left leg, and the right leg will cross over the left leg, squeezing the thigh and the calves together, maybe touching the right toes down to the floor, maybe wrapping the toes behind the calf, whatever works. Again, the top of the torso is facing straight forward. And bring the arms out to the side, and this time we're going to wrap with the right arm under the left. Again, you could just wrap and leave the backs of the palms facing each other, but not close together. You could bring them close to each other or wrap around so that the front palms are facing each other. Keep breathing for sure. Sometimes it's hard to keep your focal point because your hands are kind of in front of your face here. And if you like, you could hinge at the hips and bring the belly close to the thighs, the elbows come down toward the knees. Keep the back straight though. This is not a forward folding of the back. It's a hinging from the hips. Woo. And it's tippy. And then when this leg has had about enough of supporting your weight, bring the arms out, bring the hands back to the heart, unwrap the legs, come back to chair, press through the feet, straighten the legs, inhale the arms up overhead, and exhale the arms to the side. And step the feet apart and take a little very loose swish side to side. You can let your knees bend, hips go past each other, heel can rise up off the floor. Very easy, unstressful sort of twist. Okay, so let us now reapproach the floor by standing in the standing mountain and inhaling the arms up overhead. And let's just stand there a moment with the arms up overhead. So this is actually a little like an upside down handstand. Okay? Got the arms and the torso and the legs and the head and neck all in a line here. Take some breaths in this position. You know, it's strengthening just to stand up, and it's more strengthening to stand up with your arms raised up. So not too much movement happening here, but quite a lot of strength building could be happening here. And then let's hinge at the hips and let the torso come forward, all as one unit, stretching through the back of the neck and the top of the head. Let the hands slide down. Let them slide back up to make that long L shape, stretching your rib cage away from the hips and your head away from the shoulders. Exhale, slide back down. Let the knees start to bend. Let them keep bending until your hands can come to the mat, and walk the hands forward and the feet back till you come to down dog. Take a little stretch here. You can bend the knees, let the knees kind of hover near the mat, and then straighten the legs and let them hover down a little bit again. And then straighten the legs, push away from the floor so that you're pushing your hands into the floor, the hands tractioning a little bit toward each other, stretching the spine very long. This is a great spinal stretch. And if you give a big bend,
to the right knee, you can stretch the left side of your body, rolling your body, looking out under the left armpit, rolling back to the center, taking a big bend to the left knee, rolling your body toward the right, looking under the right armpit, and roll back to the center. Reach the hips back behind you, and then take a little push with the toes and roll yourself forward into any kind of plank that you like. You could have the knees down, you could be on hands and knees, you could come down to your forearms. All of those make great planks. And then we're going to lower onto the mat. So bring the elbows close to the body as you lower yourself down. Let yourself rest. Bring your arms back alongside your body with your palms down and your thumbs away from your body. So your thumbs are pointing out, the palms are down, legs stretched out behind your hips. Let your chin or your forehead rest so that your head and neck are in line with your spine. Press the fingers into the floor and let that roll your shoulders away from the floor. And we'll use that as the beginning of a locust pose. So from there, stretch through the crown of the head and through the feet and then through the fingers to come into a shallow locust pose with your shoulders drawn back away from your body. So drawn away from the floor. Take a few breaths here. As you breathe in and out fully, you might feel yourself sort of rocking a little bit in locust pose. And then let yourself down. You can let your hands be a pillow for your head. Bend at the knees, let the knees walk kind of wide apart, and take a little side-to-side swish here. And then bring the legs back down and roll yourself over onto your back. And just for fun, let's do a little eagle pose again on your back. And you can just feel how different this is than when you're standing on one leg. So lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat. Stretch your arms out to the side with the palms facing up. And now cross your right leg over your left, squeezing the thighs together, squeezing the calves together. Maybe in this position, you actually can wrap the toes around behind the left calf. And then with the arms, we're going to cross across the body with the right arm under the left. And whatever wrap you like, you could be backs of the palms together, fronts of the palms together, whatever. And now leaving your spine and your head and your neck on the floor, you could draw your knees up so that your knees and your elbows come closer together and then a little bit farther apart and a little closer together, but leaving the whole spine supported on the floor. Closer together. Let the feet back to the floor. Unwind the arms, the palms facing up. Unwind the legs, feet flat to the floor. Take a little swish of the knees from side to side for relaxation. And then we'll go the other way. So crossing the left leg over the right, maybe wrapping the toes around behind the calf, maybe not. Squeeze the thighs and the calves together. Cross the arms with the left arm coming under the right. Wrap the arms to whatever extent is accessible to you. And then you can either just leave yourself right there, or without bringing any of your spine up off the floor, you could lift your feet from the floor and draw the elbows and the knees a little closer together and a little farther apart and a little closer together and a little farther apart. And let the feet come back to the floor. Unwrap the arms, spread them out with the palms facing up. Unwrap the legs, both feet flat to the floor with knees bent. Walk the feet kind of far apart and take a few more loose swishes of the knees. Walk your feet back toward each other, and we're just going to bring the legs over the hips for several breaths. So you might want just a little prop under the hips. If you have a little pillow or a little blanket or something handy, you could use that, or you can just stack your palms under your hips and bring the legs up overhead. This is intended to be restorative. So fix it so that you're not having a gigantic abdominal muscle challenge here. So that might mean bringing your legs further back toward your head. It might mean bending at the knees so the weight of the legs comes further toward your head. Just let the legs be up there. Don't have to do anything in particular with them. And take at least 5 generous inhale, exhale breaths. If you want to, but you certainly don't have to, you can do a little pointing and flexing through the feet or a little rolling of the feet around the ankles while they're up there in that handy position. And then let the knees bend and the thighs come toward either side of your torso. And you can extract your hands if you put them under your sacrum. A little squeeze of the knees in toward the chest and then let them float away for a moment. Give them a little squeeze in, let them float away. Another little squeeze in and then let them float away. And then take whatever kind of Shavasana position you would like. If you've got a wall handy, you could put your legs up the wall. If you've got a chair handy, you could put your legs on the seat of a chair. You can lie on your back with your knees bent, knees knocked in toward each other, or you can lie in the classic corpse pose with the legs outstretched, just letting your feet relax off to the side. Or you could lie on your belly. That's a perfectly fine position for Shavasana too. So let every part of you that is touching the wall, the floor, any props, give up completely into that support. So no hovering, no levitation going on here. Check around and make sure everything is resting heavily. Imagine that your exhale could drop you a bit deeper into the floor. Breathe in and out through your nose and let your breath be very quiet. If everything is relaxed through your head and throat and through your torso, your breath will be silent. Now let your breathing become a little deeper, a little more active. You might like to breathe in through your nose, breathing in deeply, and then exhale deeply out through your mouth a few times. Bring a little movement into your face, maybe opening and closing the jaw, maybe kind of tightening up all the muscles of your face and then letting them go. Little movement to the hands and the feet. As we did earlier, you could spread the fingers out wide and you could spread the toes out wide too, so the toes come a little back behind the bottom of the feet, and then let them relax. Repeat that a couple times. Take any sort of stretching that you like. And when you're done stretching, bring your arms back to your sides, and one knee at a time to bring your feet flat, knees bent. Let your knees sway gently from side to side. And eventually let that swaying carry you over onto one side so that you're lying in a fetal position. Make your head comfortable. And to come up, press with your arms. Let your head and your torso be as passive as possible. And take any kind of kneeling or seated position that'll be comfortable, just a minute or so. Sit with the pelvis rolled a little forward, tall spine. Check that your belly is relaxed enough that you can feel the outward motion of the muscles as you breathe in and the drawing back as you breathe out. Let your shoulders rest away from your ears toward the back of your body and the elbows hang close to your side. Take a few breaths here. Bring the palms together, the thumbs near the breastbone, and we'll close with one Om after an inhale. Zoom doesn't like sustained sounds, so the Om will probably cut off, but just keep Oming yourself. It's kind of a nice resonant feeling and sound. We'll inhale first. Om. Namaste.